Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Jenna Miller, and I am an Equal Justice Works Fellow sponsored by Greenberg Traurig at Advocates for Children of New York. And I really appreciate all of you making the time to discuss bullying behavior with me. I've included my contact information on this presentation should you have follow-up questions or concerns after the presentation. Throughout the presentation, if you have a question that comes up, I may not be able to answer all of your questions, but please feel free to chat me and I will do my best to answer them in a timely manner. I've also included an article from Childmind for families or for professionals that work with young people for some signs to look out for to see if a young person is experiencing bullying behavior. And I've also attached the New York City Department of Education Chancellor's regulation that explains how schools should respond to bullying that a student experiences. And so those are for your reference. So before we start the presentation, I want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm a former New York City public school teacher, and I graduated from Columbia Law School just about a year ago. I'm doing a fellowship project here at Advocates for Children that's focusing on helping young people that have been involved in bullying behavior or in a bullying incident in some way or another. I'm really excited to do the training with this group because it's such an important issue, and it's something that I know a lot of people are thinking about right now. So just to give you guys an idea of what we'll be going over during the presentation today, I'll introduce my organization. We'll discuss what bullying is according to New York State and New York City law. We'll discuss how students are protected from bullying under New York State and New York City law, how bullying is reported, how bullying is investigated, how bullying is determined, which is really important because sometimes a teacher or a student will see something that they think is bullying, but it's very important to investigate to make sure that the behavior is actually bullying. Discuss a little bit about how families can work with schools to address bullying behavior, how students can get transfers if bullying behavior is interfering with their education, and I'll also discuss the special rights of students with disabilities who have been involved in a bullying incident. So, what is Advocates for Children? The mission of our organization is to improve access to quality education for all New York City students, particularly students of color and students from low-income backgrounds. The organization was founded in 1971 by parents of students with disabilities, and since then we've actually expanded to encompass more than just students with disabilities. This is our website right here, advocatesforchildren.org. We also have an organization called New York State Teaches that focuses on helping schools support young people who are not in permanent housing. But how our organization helps students access a quality education in New York City, we primarily do free legal representation. We also do policy advocacy, impact litigation, general advocacy, and we also offer technical assistance. I've also included our helpline number on here. Our helpline is available Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and helpline speaks your language, so you can call in any language, and we'll do our best to answer your questions if it's related to public school in New York. AFC is an independent agency. We are not a part of the government, and we're on our own. So let's move into what bullying is. So bullying behavior can take a lot of different forms. Under New York State and New York City law, bullying behavior is recognized as either oral or written, physical or electronic. The key to whether or not something is bullying behavior is whether or not it creates a hostile environment. So how can it create a hostile environment? If it interferes with a student's learning, if it interferes with a student's mental, emotional, or physical well-being, or if it reasonably causes a student to fear for her safety. And this is really important because even if a student says that they are not scared of a threat or some kind of taunt or interference, if it would make a reasonable person fear for their safety, it may qualify as bullying behavior, or if it's reasonably expected to cause physical injury or emotional harm. And again, I want to draw your attention to the reasonable standard. And remind you guys that this definition comes from the New York City Chancellor's regulation that I attached to this presentation, and it also comes from the state law around bullying, the Dignity for All Students Act, which I'll sometimes refer to as DASA. The Chancellor's regulation only applies to students that are in New York City Department of Education schools. The Dignity for All Students Act, though, applies to any student that is in a public school in New York State. So, what sorts of behavior could be forms of bullying? One is physical violence, stalking, threats, taunts or teasing, aggressive or menacing gestures, derogatory language, derogatory jokes, name-calling or slurs. A really important one that absolutely counts as bullying behavior is exclusion. Leaving someone out from a group in a way that is supposed to humiliate or isolate. So I've given two examples right here. So this absolutely can be a form of bullying behavior. Not all of it is bullying behavior, though. Some things to look out for that are hallmarks of bullying behavior is when there's a power difference, when there's an intention to cause harm, when it's repeated, and when it does cause harm. So for instance, one day one student may make a joke to another that hurts the other student's feelings. If they don't make the joke again, or if they weren't trying to hurt the other student's feelings or make them feel bad about themselves, then it probably doesn't count as bullying. However, if the same student makes the same hurtful joke and knows that the joke is hurtful and makes the joke over and over and over again, that probably does count as bullying behavior. And that's one of the reasons why investigation is so important for bullying behavior. And for those of us who are just joining this presentation, again, if questions come up, feel free to send in a chat. So probably the most common form of bullying now, of bullying behavior now, or the form of bullying behavior that I hear most parents having questions about is cyberbullying. So under the Chancellor's regulation, written or graphic material including graffiti, photographs, drawings, or videos containing comments or stereotypes that are electronically circulated or are written or printed. This is the definition of cyberbullying under the Chancellor's regulation. I've listed 3 social media websites: Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, and I'm sure that there are many of us that could think of a number of other platforms that are places where cyberbullying sometimes takes place. I include this slide to make clear that bullying behavior can happen outside of school. It can happen during school when students are using the internet on their phones or in class, but it can also happen after hours when students are using the internet. The key is if the cyberbullying impacts the child's education when they're in school, reasonably causes them to feel fear or substantially interferes with their education, then it may be considered bullying behavior. So what are some things to look out for in bullying behavior? And I shared this before. Think about whether or not there's a power difference between two students. Let's say one student is bigger than another. One student is more popular than another. If there's an intention to cause harm, if the behavior is repeated, and if it does cause harm. So the state law and the city chancellor's regulation actually outline some of the populations that are commonly targeted in bullying behavior. There's bullying based on weight, bullying based on gender, bullying based on sexual orientation or perceived sexual orientation, and there's bullying based on disability, ethnicity, national origin, or religion. These are some of the identity groups that are commonly singled out in bullying behavior. Another thing to think about if you're working with a young person who may be experiencing bullying behavior is knowing how to ask them questions about when they're experiencing bullying behavior. In my work, I've found that bullying behavior is most likely to occur in situations where there aren't too many adults around. Or where there's lots of kids around and it's difficult for adults to see and hear exactly what's going on between the kids. So for instance, lunch, recess, gym, transition between classes, and very importantly, online. So these are times when bullying behavior is likely to occur. So New York state law and the New York City Chancellor's regulation really make clear that bullying can be based on a student's actual or perceived membership in a group. And both the state law, the Dignity for All Students Act, and the Chancellor's regulation list a number of groups that are explicitly protected from bullying behavior. So if there's bullying based on race, color, creed, ethnicity, national origin, citizenship or immigration status, religion, gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, and very importantly, weight. Weight is a very common thing that young people are bullied about. But these are all categories that are specifically pointed out in the law. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that students are protected whether or not students are protected based on their actual identity or whether or not people just think it's their identity. So let's say that a young person is teased and gets derogatory jokes saying bad things about Muslims. But if the child isn't Muslim, they are still protected under the law because it is perceived membership in a group too. So the child may not be Muslim, but if they are teased for being Muslim because other people think that they're Muslim, then they're protected under the law. Same for gender identity if a student is misgendered. So if students or staff consistently call a student by a gender that they don't identify with, that can also be considered bullying behavior because, again, it's actual or perceived membership in a group. So let's go over what the laws are. I did not include the text of the Dignity for All Students Act. This is the New York state law, and the New York state law applies to all students, all public school students in New York State. And the Chancellor's regulation, A832, only applies to students that are in the New York City Department of Education. These laws are very similar, though, and they say what some of the values are in New York City, in New York State and New York City schools. So they say that basically students have the right to a safe learning environment and shouldn't be afraid to go to school. They also put an obligation on schools to prevent, to think proactively about bullying and how they're going to stop it, and also to stop bullying, harassment, and discrimination whenever they are aware of it or whenever they see it. And the law goes out of its way to say the specific groups of people that are likely to be the specific groups that are often targeted in bullying behaviors, such as race, color, creed, ethnicity, national origin, citizenship, immigration status, religion, gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, or weight. These are all groups that are protected from that behavior, and schools have an obligation to not only prevent this behavior, but also to stop it. And the law also, the Dignity for All Students Act, requires every school district to report bullying incidents at the end of every year to the New York State Department of Education. I want to draw to your attention that both of these laws really say something that I think we want for all students, which is that we want them all to have a safe learning experience. So, what do schools need to do in practice in order to meet up to the law? So, schools need to plan, publicize, train, and act. So, most of what I'm talking about here comes directly from the Chancellor's regulations. So what I've listed on this slide are the things that New York City Department of Education in order to live up to the Chancellor's regulation, which is a legal requirement. Each school needs to have a plan to prevent and address harassment, intimidation, and/or bullying, and they need to put it in a yearly report that they submit to the Department of Education. Each school needs to publicize their anti-bullying policies and how students and families and staff can report bullying. So they should be distributing a Respect for All brochure every year to parents and students, making the Chancellor's regulation available. And they are also supposed to put the name and the contact information of the school's Respect for All liaison on a poster that is easy to see within the school. They need to have a training. So in the training, they need to have a Respect for All liaison that is trained to deal with bullying behavior. And I have my cursor over the Respect for All graphic. People who have been in a public school in New York City recently have probably seen this graphic, but Respect for All is the campaign in New York City public schools, is the anti-bullying campaign in New York City public schools, and it's the way that New York City public schools are trying to comply with the state law and keep students safe from bullying behavior. So the Respect for All liaison is supposed to be trained in dealing with bullying behavior and is supposed to be an expert in bullying reporting. And this person is also supposed to make sure that all students and staff, including non-instructional staff, are trained on bullying policies by October 31st of every year. So if you have a young person who goes to a school in the New York City Department of Education, you should absolutely ask them if they have received Respect for All training this year, because they should by October 31st, and that date is coming up. And finally, schools need to act. It's not enough for schools just to be aware that bullying behavior is happening. Schools need to report that there's been an allegation of bullying behavior. They need to investigate any alleged bullying behavior. And if they determined that behavior is bullying, they need to stop the bullying incidents from happening. So how does bullying need to be reported? School staff that are aware of bullying need to quickly report it orally to the principal or the Respect for All liaison within 1 day. So their report can be oral or written, but it needs to at least be orally reported within 1 day, and they need to file a written report within 2 school days of making the oral report. So who can report bullying behavior, though? any student or parent can report bullying to any school staff member, and the school staff member should then report it to the Respect for All liaison or to the principal. If you do not feel comfortable reporting it to a school staff member or to the principal or to the Respect for All liaison, you can email respectforall@schools.nyc.gov in any language. And again, teachers should be reporting any behavior that they think is bullying behavior, whether or not it is actually bullying. If they suspect that they've seen something that is bullying behavior, they should report it. But in case you're not sure, you can always follow up with them and always email this DOE email address. What should be in these reports? They should be in writing. And they should be date stamped with proof that it was sent. So for instance, if you suspect that your child has been involved in a bullying incident and you see a school staff member when you're dropping them off at school and you say, you know, I think something's going on with my child, I think that there's a bullying incident going on, it's a really good idea for you to then send them an email that says, you know, it was nice to talk to you earlier today. Thanks for talking with me about the bullying behavior that I think that my child is going through. And that way you have proof going forward that you reached out to the school and you can show which date you reached out to the school. And if you don't have access to email, you can always write a letter and keep a copy of the letter. And it's always a good idea to keep track of who you gave it to at the school. So things that should go in the letter, it's what you think is happening, who you think was involved in the incident, where you think the bullying accident, and what was going on within the incident. It's also important to note that the state law and the city chancellor's regulation explicitly, they go out of their way to protect people who report bullying incidents from retaliation. So if your child is scared to report a bullying incident, something to keep in mind is that they do have special protection from retaliation for reporting. Same with school staff. So something, again, so important to keep in mind is that bullying can be really hard to identify. People can have different perspectives on what happened. So the key to figuring out whether or not something is actually bullying behavior is actually having an investigation. So how does the investigation happen? In the New York City Department of Education, bullying complaints must be entered into ORS. And ORS stands for Online Occurrence Reporting System within 24 hours of getting an oral report. And just to be clear, any parent can ask for an ORS report for an incident that they believe that their child was involved in. And once the ORS report, once the principal receives a report that somebody thinks that bullying behavior was going on, the principal needs to investigate the complaint within 5 days of getting the report. So if you believe that your child was involved in a bullying incident, you should ask the school for the ORS report of the incident. And if the school says that there isn't an ORS report, but they're looking into it, you should insist that the school make an ORS report that you have made an allegation of bullying behavior. Ask for the ORS report. It's very important. So what should an investigation include? And in the New York City Department of Education, the chancellor's regulation is very clear about what it needs to include. It involves a lot of talking. So the principal should be interviewing the person who is the alleged target of the bullying behavior. The principal should document the conversation, and the principal should ask the alleged target of bullying behavior to prepare a written statement that describes the behavior, the location and time, and who else may have witnessed the behavior. The investigation also needs to include an interview with the person that is accused of demonstrating the bullying behavior. And the principal should tell the person that's alleged to have done the bullying behavior that it needs to stop immediately and ask them to prepare a written statement. The principal also needs to interview any people who may have seen the behavior and request written statements from them. The key to this is really fact gathering. At this point, the principal may not know whether or not it's bullying behavior, so instead of dismissing something as bullying behavior or not bullying behavior, it's so important for the principal. It's so important for the principal to really make sure that they know what has happened. The principal or the Respect for All liaison then needs to contact the parents of all students involved. And when they contact the parents or the families or the guardians to discuss the allegations about bullying behavior with them, the only time that they wouldn't do that is if there are safety concerns that so greatly outweigh telling the parents or guardians about the alleged bullying behavior. And the principal or Respect for All liaison then, once the investigation is over, needs to call the families, the parents or guardians, and tell them the results of the investigation. So how does the principal decide if it's actually bullying behavior? Well, they need to consider a number of factors. And this is again, is all in the chancellor's regulation. The principal is thinking about age. They're thinking about the nature, seriousness, and extent of the behavior. They're thinking about, did this happen a lot? Did this happen a little? Did this happen for a day, or did it happen for a month or a whole year? How many people were involved? Did this happen at lunchtime? Did this happen during class? Where did this happen? Did this happen with lots of people involved? Is this happening between the same students over and over again? Is this something where these students have had conflict before? And really importantly, did this incident hurt the student's education? So these are all factors to determine, was this interpersonal conflict? Was this just kids having problems with one another? Or did it actually hurt, or was it actually bullying behavior? Because there's a difference, and these factors help principals understand the difference. People are quick to refer to behavior as bullying, and others are quick to dismiss behavior as not bullying. But again, the most important thing is that before a principal can label something as bullying behavior or not, they need to conduct an investigation and consider the factors listed on this slide. So now the principal has gotten a report of bullying behavior. The principal has conducted an investigation. The principal has used factors to determine whether or not something is bullying behavior. And the principal has contacted all the families. What does the principal need to do to respond to bullying? So first of all, the principal needs to make sure that the bullying behavior stops. They need to protect anyone who was involved in the investigation from a person who may want to get back at them because of the investigation. So if somebody made a complaint of bullying and another student was disciplined because of it, the principal needs to make sure that the person who made the complaint doesn't suffer any consequences because of that. The principal should be recommending supports and interventions for the students who were involved in the incident. And, this is a good idea, even if the principal determines that an incident wasn't bullying behavior. If a student reports that something was bullying behavior, even if the principal in the end determines that it wasn't actually bullying behavior, at the end of the day, the principal has a young person that thinks that they've experienced something that didn't feel very good, so the principal should be thinking about ways that they can support that student. So what are some supports that the principal can offer? The principal could offer individual counseling, positive behavioral supports, education services like tutoring, teaching social skills, teaching how to cope with emotions, or even collaborative problem solving. There are a number of different kinds of counseling and training methods that are available that principals could use. If it's conflict between two students and the principal thinks that all students involved, so note that I say appropriate, and that really means that if all students involved are interested in doing this, the principal could facilitate restorative practices, conflict resolution, or mediation. And again, all and their families wanting to be involved in that process is the most important thing. And again, if the principal determines that it's bullying behavior and determines that the bullying behavior has violated the discipline code, in New York City, the principal should look to the discipline code, which requires that principals use progressive discipline. And that really means that they should do everything possible to keep the student in the classroom and to keep the student learning and use guidance interventions first before excluding them from their education. And the discipline code gives a number of different options for support that a principal can give a student. Any questions about this at this point? Again, feel free to chat. Okay. So what if the school doesn't respond to bullying behavior or the bullying continues? So if families are not happy with the school's response, we have a few recommendations for things that you can do. You can tell the principal again, and we always recommend that you put it in writing. You can send yourself an email or a text message, or someone else. You can email the principal directly and say, look, I think that this incident is going on. I'd like for you to take a look at it, and I'd like for you to make this behavior stop. If you do not feel comfortable talking to the school administration again or talking to school staff again, feel free to email this email address, respectforallatschools.nyc.gov. This email address links directly to the Office of Safety and Youth Development, and someone from that office will take a look at your complaint and will support the school in looking into the bullying behavior. We also recommend that you contact the Family Support Coordinator at the superintendent's office for your school, and every Department of Education school on their DOE school portal website has the name and contact information of this person at the superintendent's office. You can also reach out to the school climate manager at the school's Borough Field Support Center. Every school in the Department of Education is connected with a Borough Field Support Center that helps it do a number of different things. And every Borough Field Support Center has a school climate manager, and that person can help your school deal with bullying behavior. Another thing you can do is, if the bullying is on social media, like for instance, if the bullying behavior is on Facebook, you can ask Facebook to take down, or you can ask Facebook or any other website to take down the post because it's bullying or harassing. If you think that you need my organization's help, if you think you need my help, please feel free to contact me directly at Advocates for Children, or you can call our helpline, and our helpline staff can help you with a lot of different issues related to bullying or any other issue related to education in New York City public schools. If the bullying behavior is based on some aspect of identity that federal law covers, you can file a complaint with the Federal Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. That complaint needs to be filed within 180 days of when the bullying, harassment, or discrimination occurred, and the bullying behavior that the Federal Department of Education Office of Civil Rights recognizes is bullying behavior based on race, color, national origin, ethnicity, ancestry, sex, transgender status, disability, religion, limited English proficiency, disability, religion, or age. The Office of Civil Rights timeline takes a long time, but it is an option that's available to you. Something that I've really found in my work, working with young people that are experiencing bullying behavior, is that most of the people that I talk to at schools really want to help young people that are experiencing bullying behavior, but sometimes they need a little help in figuring out how to support people who are experiencing bullying behavior. The first thing that I suggest doing is requesting a meeting at a school where a child is experiencing bullying behavior and asking them to create a safety plan. And what a safety plan is basically asking the young person, if they want to participate, asking the parents of the young person, asking the teachers who work with the young person, asking the guidance counselor who work with the young person what things are would be helpful for making the young person feel safe at school. And this is important for young people that are accused of really acting out bullying behavior or who are the targets of bullying behavior. A lot of times young people who are experiencing bullying behavior have a good idea of what they think would make them feel safe at school. And this plan should be written so that families can hold schools accountable for actually doing the things that they say that they're going to do to keep the students safe. Families can request counseling for students who are involved in bullying incidents. When you go to the school after you know that a bullying incident has happened or after you think that a bullying incident has happened, you should ask if the school has done a training for staff or students about bullying behavior. If they haven't, you should suggest that the staff do a training or students do a training about bullying behavior, because chances are if one student is experiencing bullying behavior, they are not the only one. There are also some really simple changes that can make a huge difference in a young person's day. So for instance, changing a child's seat, if the student next to them is bothering them all the time, sometimes it can make a really big difference for them to be placed in different parts of the room, or for their teachers to know that those two students shouldn't be sitting together. Sometimes it can be helpful to change a student's schedule. Now, you have a lot more control over your child's schedule, but sometimes just making sure that they're in different class, that your child is in a different class than a student that they've been experiencing a lot of conflict with can make a big difference in their day. And sometimes you don't even need to change the child's entire schedule, but let's say they're experiencing a lot of bullying behavior in lunch, or they're experiencing a lot of bullying behavior in gym, or they're experiencing a lot of bullying behavior in science class. Sometimes all they need is to have one class changed, and that'll make a big difference in their day. You can notify staff that students have conflict with one another, and ask staff to be on the lookout to make sure that those students, aren't paired together in high socialization times, or just to make sure that those students are being respectful to one another. You can request that students be dismissed from school at different times. So for instance, if your child is experiencing bullying behavior walking to the subway after school, you can request that the principal, that your child be able to sit in the principal's office for an extra 15 minutes after school, so they're walking at a different time than the student who's bothering them. If all students involved in bullying incidents want to be involved, you can suggest restorative practices, conflict resolution, or mediation. Another big thing that can make a difference is being able to check in with an adult who a student trusts. So you can ask the student, you can ask your child who they feel comfortable talking with at the school, and in the safety plan you can say, in the beginning of the day, my child will check in with the guidance counselor, or my child will check in with the English teacher, or will check in with the math teacher, or will check in with the custodian, because that's somebody who the student feels safe with. something to think about is that if you and or the school is having trouble thinking about a safety plan, thinking about things that the school can do to make your child feel safe at school from bullying, you can also go to the school climate manager at the school's Borough-Field Support Center and ask them for ideas for help in creating and implementing a safety plan. So, unfortunately, sometimes bullying behavior has gotten so bad that a student really just isn't going to feel safe at school until they go to a different school. So sometimes a student will be entitled to a safety transfer. And again, what I've listed on this slide is all information within the New York City Department of Education. So it will not apply outside of the New York City Department of Education. Students can qualify for a safety transfer if they have been the victim of a violent crime on school grounds, or if they believe that staying at their current school puts them in danger. Usually, a student must be able to point to a specific incident. Documentation isn't required. Documentation is required. However, a police report is not required to request a safety transfer. So you could use a number of different things to show an incident that is putting your child in danger. So that could be an ORS report, and remember that's the database where schools should be logging all incidents. So ORS stands for Online Occurrence Reporting System. A police report, medical records, an order of protection, or a letter or statement from someone who has witnessed the incident, or some combination of all of these things. So families should go to the Family Welcome Center to request a safety transfer, and families can also request a safety transfer through the school. The school itself can also request a safety transfer, and the Department of Education needs to make a decision within 5 business days. Chancellor's Regulation A101 and A449 govern transfer procedures. So what's the process? You'll basically get the documentation together. You get a T form in the packet. You go to the Family Welcome Center, and they'll give you a spot in a school with a space. So again, your child will be transferring to a school that has space. So that's something to keep in mind. There's also a new kind of transfer that's available called a guidance transfer. And you also request this at the Family Welcome Center. They may be particularly useful for students who are involved in a bullying incident. Basically, the standard is if the student is not progressing or succeeding academically or socially. And most of the time in a bullying incident, they're certainly not progressing socially. And when you request this safety transfer, you should be able to show that a new school would address whatever your concerns are about your child's progress at the school that they're currently in. And you can find a list of Family Welcome Centers that you would go to request this transfer at this link right here. And again, the guidance transfer is listed in Chancellor's Regulation A101, and you can find a copy of every Chancellor's Regulation on the Department of Education website. So students with disabilities are disproportionately involved in bullying incidents, but luckily there are some tools that families and schools have to prevent bullying behavior from happening and to keep students with disabilities safe from bullying behavior. So because bullying can impact a child's academic, social, emotional, or behavioral functioning, it is something that belongs on a student's IEP, their individualized education plan, if the student has a disability and they're involved in bullying behavior. The idea of an IEP is that it is supposed to help the professionals that are working with a student with a disability and the families that are working with a student with disability support a young person with a disability in accessing their education. It's supposed to be a plan to help them have an appropriate education in school. And so if a student with a disability is involved in a bullying incident, it should be discussed at an IEP meeting. And it doesn't matter if they are the target of a bullying incident, if you believe that the young person has been acting out bullying behavior on another student. It's something, even if a student is acting out bullying behavior on another student, it's probably something that's not doing much to help them move along socially or academically. So it should be on the IEP. And on the IEP document, in addition to listing the concerns that you have about bullying behavior, that's a time for the IEP team to discuss what the school can do to help the young person feel safe. So the meeting that I suggested before, when I suggested that families work with schools to help them keep a child safe from bullying behavior, well, you should put a safety plan or an anti-bullying plan within the IEP itself. And this safety plan or anti-bullying plan, it should list ways that the school is going to help the young person feel safe, and it also should list ways that the school is going to prevent other students or staff members from bullying, harassing, or discriminating against the person that is the target of the bullying behavior. Another support that can be very helpful for students that are involved in bullying incidents is an evaluation called a functional behavioral assessment, which basically is something where a young person, a student is observed in class and they document things that trigger a student to do well in class or to do well in school or to not focus in school or to have an outburst in school that's not helping them progress. And then after they document the things that cause the behavior that's not helping the student succeed in school, they create a behavioral intervention plan that basically is a plan to make sure that the school is teaching the student how to have different behavior that will help them succeed in school or will help them access an appropriate education. You can also recommend that if you think that the child is involved in bullying incidents because of some academic struggles, you can recommend special education teacher support services or SETs to give them extra academic support. If you think that a student is involved in bullying behavior because they're in class with other students who are bothering them and it's bullying behavior, it's not just conflict, you can talk with the IEP team about how the school can give your student support for their disabilities in a different way. So let's say your child is in an ICT class. And the school, and you say to the school, I want to change my child's program because there's another student in my child's class who's bothering my child. And the school says, no, we only have one ICT class. Well, that's an opportunity for you to say, okay, I think it's more important for my child to change classes, so I think that my child can still get the support they need if they get sets and they get speech support during the school day. I can move them to a less restrictive environment because I think that they'll be safer. They'll be safer in a general education classroom with pull-out special education supports than they will be in ICT. you can also suggest changing the program so the child has classes only with students with the same disability or disability classification as your child. So let's say that your child has difficulty reading. Perhaps it would be more helpful for them to be in a class with other students who also have difficulty reading, because then they'll get more targeted special education services. If the school does not allow you to talk about bullying behavior at the IEP meeting, or if you or the school want help with ideas of what special education services could be used to keep your child safe from bullying or to keep your child progressing socially or academically, we really encourage you to reach out to the Borough Field Support Center. The key with the IEP meeting, though, is the more the IEP documents your concerns and the more information the school has to address the bullying behavior, the better the IEP will be at actually helping the teachers and professionals at school address the bullying behavior. And even if the school can't really address the bullying behavior themselves, it creates a record that bullying behavior was negatively affecting your child's education, your student's education in some way. It could be academically, socially, or emotionally. And if the school doesn't address the bullying behavior and you need to take some kind of legal action, you'll have the IEP documenting your earlier concerns. Something that the IEP can also do is it can include goals and strategies for how to teach the student social emotional skills or coping and self-soothing skills that can be very important for diffusing bullying behavior. So I have time for some questions. Let's see. I'm trying to read some of the questions now. So one question I have is, can the school ask the students, the target of bullying behavior, the person who's accused of acting out bullying behavior, or witnesses without parental consent? The student can ask, or excuse me, the school can ask students initially about bullying behavior. And then another question is about the written statements. Do you or your child have the right to refuse to provide a written statement without representation by a parent or lawyer? Yes. You or your child can refuse to provide a written statement, period. You don't have to give a reason. I have another question. Can bullying behavior be between a student and a staff member? Yes. Bullying behavior can be, a staff member can act out bullying behavior on a student. Okay. But there's a different, so the Chancellor's regulation that I provided you details bullying behavior between students. The New York City Department of Education has another Chancellor's regulation that deals with bullying behavior between staff and students. Okay, it looks like I have somebody else that's trying to ask me a question. I have a really great question right here. What if the bullying behavior happens in the school bus? Who should I report it to, the school or OPT? So just want to be clear that Chancellor's Regulation A832 covers bullying behavior that happens on Department of Education vehicles. We think it's a great idea to report the bullying behavior to the school and to OPT. And if, again, you can also report the bullying behavior to that Respect for All email address that I provided to you. That's respectforall@schools.nyc.gov. I have another question. So this question is about a teacher denying that bullying behavior occurred. What can a parent do if a teacher denies that bullying behavior occurred? So this is really where the investigation comes in. So it's not if a teacher says that bullying behavior didn't occur, but then a few students say that bullying behavior did occur, or another school staff member disagrees with the teacher, you should encourage the principal to reach out to all those people. So if a principal investigates bullying behavior and you don't think that the principal was asking the right people questions, then you should ask for the written results of the investigation. And if you notice that the principal didn't ask all of the witnesses if they saw bullying behavior, then you should tell the principal to talk to more people. And again, if the principal is not doing a thorough investigation, or if the principal is not investigating at all, you can always reach out to the Respect for All email address through the Department of Education. Okay, I have another question. Can an ORS report, an online occurrence reporting system, report be completed for an incident involving a student assaulting another student? So the answer is yes. Any disruptive incident at a school should be, or alleged disruptive incident at a school should be logged into the ORS database. So I have a question that I get a lot here. Someone is asking, with regards to safety transfers, can you request that the student who is acting out the bullying behavior be transferred or removed from the school? The answer is not. The answer is that it is much, much easier to move your student or your child from the school. The school cannot really forcibly transfer a student if they don't want to be transferred. I have a question. Are NYSED-approved NPS's non-public schools included from anti-bullying laws? And the answer is they are very clearly, they are covered. They are probably covered under the State Dignity for All Students Act. So I have another question coming in. Do charter schools go by the same guidelines? Charter schools in New York State are covered by the State Dignity for All Students Act. Every charter school should have its plan to comply with the State Dignity for All Students Act available on its website, and it may have different procedures for how to report bullying behavior and how it investigates bullying behavior. It's up to the charter school to figure out how it will follow the State Dignity for All Students Act. But they are not bound by the Chancellor's regulation. Okay. Okay. Well, okay, let's see. I have a really great question right here. If there's not been any anti-bullying seminar, information, training, or posting done at your school, should you email Respect for All? And the answer is, if any of those things have not happened, you should absolutely email Respect for All. and then I have another question, do I have a right to receive a report on measures that had been taken in regards to my child being bullied, even if I see improvement? And the answer is that particularly for students with disabilities, even if you see improvement but you think that bullying behavior is still interfering with your child's education, then you can absolutely ask for it to be discussed. This is also the type of thing that you could certainly talk about when you get report cards for your students. It's something you can talk about with your student's guidance counselor. You're really entitled to talk with the school about anything having to do with your child's academic, social, or emotional progress. But more importantly, the school should want to tell you about your child's academic, social, or emotional progress. Okay, so I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I hope that this has been helpful. Should you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me, take a look at our website, or take a look at the Department of Education's website. Have a lovely afternoon.